Hello, this is Katie Macdonald from Well on Tour, and you are listening to the good stuff in between.
If I could only read your mind with superhuman power, life would be a breeze sometimes. The good stuff's in between the lines, my thoughts and my feelings.
There's something magical, addictive even, about the music industry. As fans, we marvel at the big lights and the even bigger sounds, often idolising those on stage, maybe even dreaming of what life might be like on the road. Some, though, like me, are also enthralled by what's going on all around the artists. The guitar tech, someone with a torch just out of view at the side of the stage, the guy who somehow knows where the jack is from the sea of cables snaking along the floor, the security guard who has their eye scanning the crowd, what you're looking for, and how did the lighting person get all the way up there? From small venues to stadiums, that feeling of wonder, of excitement, it never really goes away, it never fades. And Katie Macdonald, she's lived that life for 2 decades now. In episode 7, she pulls back the curtain and talks to me about what it's really like, having toured the world with some of the biggest names in the industry, and the incredible memories that will live with her forever. Yet also what happens when burnout occurs and the party stops. That's something that she knows firsthand. Here, she is searingly honest about her own personal experiences of that. She articulates all the things that happened and eventually led to her setting up the pioneering Well on Tour service, a game-changing new lifestyle offering for the industry. And it's one that she hopes will help people turn a spotlight on themselves and their own well-being long before the music ever stops. The good stuff in between, episode 7 Katie, is now streaming wherever you get your podcasts.
Nothing's gonna bring me down.
Welcome to episode 7 of the good stuff in between. Today I'm with Katie Macdonald. Hello.
Hello.
You are the brains behind what I think is one of the most exciting projects I've came across in music in recent times, which is Well on Tour. Can you explain in 10 words what that's about?
10 words, okay. It's an organisation that promotes well-being for people who work in the music industry. That was about 10.
I think that's pretty awesome. There you go. So just explain, you spent more than 2 decades working in the music industry.
Yes.
You have since gone on to train in nutrition. You're a nutritionist. You are a health coach, a yoga teacher, and according to your website, you're passionate about beating burnout.
Yes.
All things I think many people will identify with in many walks of life. I can imagine when it comes to the music industry itself, you must see that everywhere.
Yeah, I think in the music industry you see it everywhere, and people are definitely more conscious of it now, but I think that's only happened in the last couple of years since COVID. I think prior to that it was just seen as something that went with the job, and it was almost like a badge of honour to be so busy, and I've only had 2 hours sleep. Oh well, I've only had an hour and a half sleep. Like, it was something to be proud of. And I've done 100 hours a week. Oh, I've done like 150 gigs this year, as if that's a good thing. But now I think that things are shifting, and people are realising that you don't have to be stressed and exhausted just to work in something you enjoy.
Is this kind of this whole Britpop thing, sort of laddish, bullish, you know, let's get large and just go mad for it, and all these phrases we used to hear
Well,
back
I think that kind of thing goes hand in hand with, in inverted commas, rock and roll. So this rock and roll lifestyle of just like sex, drugs, booze, partying, no sleep, just it's the reason why so many people want to get into the job in the first place, I think, because it has this kind of cool factor. But yeah, it's not the most healthy lifestyle to live.
So I could ask you which of those vices was the reason you got into music industry, but I know it wasn't that. You grew up surrounded by music industry, is that correct?
Yeah. So my dad is a musician, and all through my childhood, he became really popular in the early 90s.
Go on and name drop.
Runrig is his band. And so I was just surrounded by it all the time, always going to his gigs, just there for sound check, the whole lot. And my whole life I've been really interested in crime, and I wanted to be a detective more than anything. Just really still now love crime stories, everything like that. And I had planned to study criminology and then eventually join the police and become a detective. So I had my whole plan mapped out.
Where were you going to go?
I was going to go to Stirling, had my place there, but I decided to take a year off after high school, and I wanted to just earn some money before I went to uni and, you know, have a break from school. And while I was on that break, my dad, he was like, oh, well, we've got a tour in Germany, Denmark, and then the UK. Do you want to come and sell merch? Like, they need an extra pair of hands. I think they paid me like 50 quid a day or something, which at that age I was like, that's more money than I've ever, I was a waitress before that, so that's more money than I've ever earned in my life, yes. So I did it, and then because I'm sure other merch people will tell you differently, but merch is quite an easy job, and it can be a bit boring because you don't really have to start doing any work till 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So I would be getting up early and I'd be milling around. I'd be like, oh, what can I do? Can I help? Can I do anything? I'd be helping the tour manager, putting up signs. I remember offering to clean the drum kit and like all this nonsense. And I really loved it.
How old were you then? 'Cause that must have
I
been
was 17.
That must be really cool.
Yeah, 17. And my dad still tells this story that when I got on the tour bus the first night, the driver told me that Britney Spears had it the week before, and I was like, oh my god, I'm so excited.
You're sitting in every seat just in case.
I was like, which one was she in? I remember going out for dinner one night with my dad and my uncle, so my uncle was also in the band, just the 3 of us. And my uncle Callum, he said, it looks like you're really loving you know, being on the road, and everyone speaks so highly of you and how keen you are to learn. And he's like, do you enjoy it? And I was like, yeah. And he went, I could see you as a tour manager like that. And that just flipped a switch. And then I started for the whole rest of the tour just thinking, oh, maybe I could be a tour manager. That could be quite fun. And then by the time Christmas came and the tour was over, I cancelled my place at Stirling and reapplied for a course down near London to do music management. And then that was it.
So let me get this straight then. You were going to uni.
Yeah.
Your uncle says, nah, I'll be a tour manager. What kind of conversation did that set off in the family?
Well, my dad was very supportive and enthusiastic, and he agreed. And my mum, well, I've got great parents, they support me no matter what I do, but I think my mum was a bit like, oh, lost another one to the music business. Because she knows, obviously, what that kind of lifestyle's like, but not like Runrig were big party animals, but, you know.
But they were a big band. Selling merch is one thing. Selling merch for a band is loved and revered in some places.
Yeah.
As Runrig, that's quite a jump to get into the industry.
Oh, I know. I have friends who, we have this joke that, because lots of people I know that have toured from a young age, did the whole splitter van thing and like sharing 6 folk to a travel lodge and all that. Like, I never did that. My first tour was on a sleeper coach with like adults. So I've been really lucky.
I reckon about 80% of the podcast interviews I've done in the last 3 years, the bands or artists always cite Runrig as, you know, their inspiration.
Oh, nice.
From that, you then somehow went to work on an even bigger tour.
Yes.
Australian Pink Floyd.
Yeah. So that came about in a really funny way. So while I was at uni, I kept every holiday from university, so summer holidays, Christmas holidays, they just kind of fell in with Runrig's tour schedule. So in the summer we'd go over to Europe and do all the festivals in Denmark and Germany. And then in the winter they would always do a UK tour. So I just did those tours in every gap from uni. And the lighting guy that they had, he put me forward to work for this promoter in Liverpool on a few festival shows.
To do what?
To do artist liaison. So they had this festival that they put on in Liverpool. It was like a whole month of gigs, and huge acts as well. It was like Michael Bublé, Blondie, Leonard Cohen, like really big shows.
So because of the audience for this show, I know what artist liaison is because I'm lucky enough to have tried it one time. Can you explain to people what that involves as a role?
Yeah, so artist liaison is where you are basically the point of contact for the artist party for the day. So anything they need, you just facilitate it. So we need some towels. Okay, you get them some towels. Oh, so-and-so's allergic to nuts. Can you make sure there's no nuts in their food? Yes, no problem. You walk them to stage. It's basically just like a babysitter for the day.
So that was in Liverpool?
That was in Liverpool, and the promoter of that festival, he was also the manager of the Australian Pink Floyd, and he said, well, do you want to come on tour with them doing merch and production assistant? The first dates are in Canada and then it's 3 months in America, and I was like, yes. So I did that. I worked for them for 3 years, and in the second year I worked for them, the tour manager lost his job for reasons I won't go into, and I was offered it. So yeah, and so I was 22 at that age.
So 22, you've been selling t-shirts,
Yeah.
CDs, saying hi to folk coming at the concerts,
Yeah.
and next thing you're thrust right into it.
Yeah, well, I wasn't really, because I'm trying to be delicate, not that I think that he'll listen to this, but he was in a relationship with someone who was on the tour, and he ended up not really doing his job, but because I was always there, I just did it for him, and I never said anything about it, but it was noticed, so that's how it happened. It was like real on the ground, in at the deep end learning, that's for sure.
How did that feel then, 22, to suddenly find yourself doing this? Did it even occur to you what kind of opportunity it was,
No.
or was it just second nature by that point?
It was just second nature, and I think now if I was to be offered a job like that, I would overthink it and maybe, I don't know, question if I could do it and everything, but at that age I was just like, yeah, I'll do it.
What do I know about running tours?
I know, I don't know, it just felt like, I don't know if maybe I had more confidence or I was just naive. I was like, yeah, I can do that.
Well, what does a 22-year-old who's fallen into becoming a tour manager for one of the biggest acts around, how did you even begin to start?
I just basically copied what the previous guy had done, but tried to do it a bit better. Because we were all on buses and the band are quite low-key, they'd travel in convoy with the crew. I was basically just looking after them, and I was at the venue from load in to load out as well. Just doing anything they need, facilitating their like VIP meet and greet, doing all their press stuff. I did all the accounting as well on that tour. I did all the merch accounting at the same time. I honestly don't know how I did it. Energy of youth, maybe.
And is there a team around you? Is there one or two individuals? Are you phoning back somewhere all the time?
No, on that tour I didn't have any assistant or anything, but the production manager was really supportive and a good friend of mine anyway. And then, yeah, the office in Liverpool was always at the other end of the phone, but yeah, just kind of winged it.
And how long did that last then?
So I worked for them total for just over 3 years, and they toured probably 8 or 9 months a year, which is mad to think back on it.
Was there one moment that really stuck out for you? You thought, yes.
Not one in particular. Oh, we did a show in Los Angeles where Katy Perry asked if she could come. I thought that was quite cool. I was like, oh, that's cool. But no, there wasn't a particular moment. I don't know. I just loved the whole experience of it. I don't know. I wasn't phased. It was weird.
Until that finished, where were you at that point?
So by that point, so that would have taken me to, oh my gosh, 2011-ish. And then like just as it is, I'm sure as you've spoken to other freelance people, when your diary looks a bit empty, you start to panic. And I had moved to Glasgow by that point, and I was trying to fill some time, and I was like, what am I going to do? I got a 9-to-5 job booking events in a bar on Bath Street in Glasgow. And I did that for 3 months over Christmas, and then I got a phone call offering me another tour with Steps. So I did that. And then after...
That's just what happens, isn't
that's
it?
just what happens.
You get a call. Do you
That's
go
how
and
it
work with
works,
Steps?
like you get recommended. But then that particular tour was the hardest tour I've ever, even to this day, the hardest touring experience I've ever had because of the schedule. And I came to the end of that and I just thought, oh, I don't know if this is the life for me. So in the background, I'd actually been emailing DA concerts for about 5 years by that point, like ever since I was at university, like emailing them every summer, can I get some work experience, have you got any jobs going, like this is what I do, blah blah blah. And nothing had ever really come of it. And then at the end of that Steps tour, I just got in touch again and said, look, I've had way more experience now, I've tour managed arena level, I've done it globally, is there anything? And they replied and they said, yeah, we've got a repping job in King Tut's coming up. It might be a bit of a step down. And I was like, I don't care, I'll do it. And then that's how I started with DF, and I worked for them for 10 years.
And King Tut's, of course, itself, pretty legendary.
King Tut's was amazing. I would still love to do shows there now. Like, I loved it there. So.
What was your favourite, if you have to pick one?
So I always say that the 1975 was my favourite because they were really unknown, and I did their first ever show there when they played to like 50 people. And then, you know the journey they went on after that. The other one that's amazing is Sam Fender. So he played support slots, just him and a guitar for years. He would come up on the train from Newcastle. He'd play for like 50 quid or something and a couple of beers, and he was so nice and his voice was amazing. And I remember me and Craig, who I worked with, always just going, why is he not like the biggest star ever? And then it happened for him. But yeah, things like that are special.
So other bands I've seen you work with are Deacon Blue, Drake, Bruno
Yeah.
Mars,
Yeah.
One Direction, George Ezra,
Yeah.
Above and Beyond at Hollywood Bowl.
That was that was the pinch me moment. I think I've had. I toured with them, and that was amazing, that gig.
Go on, name drop a few more. Come on.
Oh God, I can't even think. Like, it's mainly big pop acts that I've done the most kind of work with. I've just finished a tour with Queens of the Stone Age, and currently working for Dermot Kennedy. But yeah, it's always a big mix. I've still never worked for my favourite bands, but maybe one day.
Who would they be?
The Rolling Stones. I'm running out of time. Springsteen and Fleetwood Mac.
Amongst all this in your journey, the roles I've got here are tour manager,
Yeah,
promoter rep,
yeah,
artist liaison,
yeah.
production coordinator. You've been doing, club gigs. You've been doing arenas.
Yeah.
You've been doing stadiums.
Yeah.
You've been doing festivals. That's a lot.
Yes. Jack of all trades.
In the middle of all that, was there any point you thought, nah, I should go into join the police?
I think about it all the time. Like any time I watch Line of Duty or The Killing or read a Ian Rankin book, I always think, I wonder what life. I always think, what would my life be like if I had just done that?
Like
and
a
I
sliding
think,
doors effect.
yeah, and like, I'd probably be married to another copper or something and living in the suburbs somewhere.
What's the fascination with crime?
I don't know. I think it's the investigative thing, and I don't like gore, and I don't love hearing about murders or anything like that, but I think I like the justice element of it and the kind of problem solving thing about it. I don't know. I've always just loved that kind of like crime fiction and things like that.
I wonder if that in any way has that kind of mindset has actually helped you in the jobs that you've performed?
Yeah, maybe when I do settlements, like looking for things.
What's the biggest health crime that drives you crazy on tour?
Oh, that's a hard one because everybody's different, but I think it is just what I said before, that culture of busyness, the pride in, like it's a badge of honour to have not given a shit about yourself. Like I think that's the worst.
Within all this business, there's other stuff. You're booking crews, you're dealing with riggers, staff in general, stages get set up, I don't know, PA, lighting, all those kind of things. Is it something you have to learn on the job, or is there a way that people interested in getting involved in the industry can preempt that before they get dropped into it?
I would say, I mean, the course I did was great, and it was nice to live near London for a few years, and I had a real fun time with my friends, but I don't think I learned properly until I actually did it. And at DF, I had two amazing, I call them mentors. One was called James and one was called Robin, and so Robin's a huge production manager. He works for Lord and Simple Minds and Snow Patrol. He's amazing, and I used to shadow him at the Hydro, and same with James, and they were so good because they never patronised me or anything. They basically just said, come down, follow me around, ask anything you want, and then if you feel like you want to take it on, just say and do it. And they just let me, and by the end of my time kind of shadowing them, they were just sitting, letting me run the show, and they were just there on hand. Like it was the best, and they taught me all about rigging and power and all the stuff that I don't really have the type of brain that can sit in a classroom and just read it. Like I have to actually see it and do it. So yeah.
I'd imagine much of your work involves both problem solving and problem avoidance as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think the planning stage is everything when you're doing a big show or a festival, because the last thing you want is to come up against problems on the day that you then have to fix. If you can preempt it, then you're one step ahead, definitely. As
I said earlier, I'm really fascinated by what you're trying to do with Well on Tour on a number of levels.
Yeah.
I just think it's a brilliant idea. I'm really curious to see where it goes. I think anybody who's been in a busy job will recognise some of the issues that you talk about.
Yeah.
Burnout, stress, not looking after yourself, perhaps even losing touch with reality in some kind of way. That suggests to me, and particularly from what you said about how busy you are and everything you've done, that you've had some personal experience of that.
Yes.
Is that what the catalyst for this was?
Yeah, 100%. If it hadn't happened, I think right now I would either be still doing the same job and just kind of struggling through and probably quite unwell, or I'd probably be in some sort of institution. There was no way that I could have continued.
Can you talk through sort of what it was, what happened, and I think maybe crucially how you knew? So
2015 is when I stepped up and started doing arenas, repping arenas. And I was so ambitious when I started at DF. Like I didn't want to be stuck doing small venues for long. As a company, they'd never had a female rep do anything bigger than, say, the Academy. So when the Hydro opened, I was like, right, I'm going to be the first female to ever rep in there. And I did. And then I wanted more responsibility, so I was advancing the shows in there. And then there weren't a huge amount of people who were at that level. So I was taking on more and more. And at some points I was doing maybe 3 or 4 shows in there a week when it was really busy, while also advancing them. And the type of gigs that go in there, they're huge. There's so many elements. There's like moving parts and stages and video walls that fly up and down. And I remember one gig, there was a car that was suspended from the ceiling and all this stuff you have to think about. But you're also dealing with productions that are based in America or other places, so you're at the behest of their schedule as well. So if these people want to have a phone call, you just make yourself available at 9 or 10 at night on your only day off that week or whatever it is. But I was so kind of blinded by it, and I really wanted to just be the best ever. And I loved, I knew I was doing a good job because people were telling me that I was doing a good job. I didn't want to let that slip. And anytime anyone would text me or call me or email me, day or night, no matter what time it was, I would reply. I would sleep with my phone beside my pillow on loud, and if it pinged, and I had all my push notifications on, if it pinged an email, no matter what time it was, I would reply. Like, I can't even, it's like a different person. But anyway, I just kept doing that, and I did that for about 3.5, 4 years at that level. Had no personal life either, had a couple of relationships that the job was the most important thing, so they kind of fell apart. And then I remember one day I was in the Barrowlands and I had this like itch on my leg, and I looked down and I just lifted up the leg of my jean and I had this rash all over my ankle, and I was like, what the hell is that? I thought it was just like an irritation or something. I was like, oh, that's weird, ignored it. Within a week, that rash was all over my whole body. Like, the only place it wasn't was my hands and feet and my face, which was quite amazing, but it was stress-induced psoriasis. The doctor like prescribed stuff and all these creams and whatever. And then I went on holiday to Mexico, and the sun and the time off made it go away, and I was like, oh, great. Came back, same level of pace of the job again, just kind of got right back into the swing of it. And then a few months after that, my hair started to come out. I remember brushing my hair one day, and I had this huge clump fell out, and I was like, oh, that's weird. Not thinking, oh, maybe it's stress related. I just thought, oh, hi, that's so strange. Like, must be the time of year. Never happened before, but it must be the time of year. Got my hair all chopped off really short. And then this insomnia kind of thing started kicking in. And then I just remember there was probably like a 3-month period where I just couldn't control my emotions. I was putting on such a brave face at work anytime I went into the office, anytime I did a gig, and I was like, yeah, no problem, no problem, no problem. Oh yeah, anyway, let me help you, all this stuff. And then every day off, I was just in bed. And it's really strange to think about now because I'm such an active person, and any day off I have now, I go to yoga or I go to the gym or go out for a walk. But I wasn't doing anything. It was like work, recovery. And I was really upset all the time, like crying, felt really low. And I remember telling my mum about it, and my mum was like, that's the job, like, you work so much. And so I spoke to my boss, and I just said, look, I think I need to take some time off. I think I need 6 months. So this was like November 2019. And they were really understanding this. They said, yes, of course, like, your job's here when you come back, no problem. So I took the 6 months. I went to California, and then I went to Vietnam. And it was when I was in Vietnam that COVID lockdown happened. And I was actually in the country at the time. And I was supposed to be going to Japan. I'd planned this amazing trip for myself with all the money I'd earned from the fact that I worked all the time. But I was actually recommended to leave Vietnam. So I flew home, called my mum and dad. I was like, I can't, if this thing lasts a long time, I can't do this in Glasgow in my flat on my own. So I lived by myself. And they were like, okay, no problem. Do like a little isolation just in case you've picked anything up on the plane, and then just come up the road. And I drove up, and I stayed with them for 3 months, and it was just life-changing, that whole thing. Dornoch, so Sutherland, and they live right by the beach. And I didn't mention this before, but I trained as a yoga teacher in 2017 just because I've always loved yoga. So my cousin, she works for a gin company, and she was like, oh, look, we're all working from home. Do you fancy teaching us online Zoom yoga? And I was like, yeah, no problem. Then she told her boss, and then they started paying me for it. And then another company started paying me. And then I was teaching like 8 classes a week online from my mum and dad's living room. Also walking on the beach every day. and then I was cooking all their meals for them. And my folks are really healthy, like they both run and they're very active, but they've got a bit of a sweet tooth, and I started remaking all their favourite things but in a healthy way, and I just felt so good. And then this kind of light bulb went off, and I was like, maybe, I love helping people, but maybe I could do this instead. And then I thought, I don't really want to work just in a hospital or in a clinic or something. And then I was like, well, I do want to work in the music industry. And then it just kind of was like,
It must have been quite scary.
The health stuff.
Yeah, the emotional turmoil you're going through, the not understanding why it was happening.
Yeah.
People looking from outside, seeing this in control leader.
Yeah.
Pointing, telling people what to do, being organised, keeping the everything on track.
Yeah.
Whereby you go home, cry, perhaps not eating well, upset, guts churning, dreading the next morning, avoiding people, and just not knowing what to do to get out of it. Do you think if it hadn't been for going home to your parents or travelling, you would have figured it out anyway?
I like to think I would, and I have a few people that I worked with that I was very close to that I could talk about things with. In general, I was too proud to talk about it, but I had one colleague, my friend Kirsty, and we did a lot of work, just the two of us together, and I would always confide in her, but I would never tell anyone else until I actually did. I didn't really want to break the facade of how composed I was, because nobody really actually knew what was actually going on. But I think now that I know a bit more about mental health and everything, it's just classic case of anxiety. That's how I felt the whole time, just on edge, just nervous, anxious. I like to think I would have figured it out.
You said on your website that you've seen firsthand both the physical and mental toll that the business has taken. Since you have stepped out and done this, have you had anyone in the industry speak to you and say, yeah, that's me, or I'm so proud of you because you've made me take that step myself? Yeah,
every day. I get like DMs and people I meet in person, and it's people who are like, I've had messages from touring musicians saying exactly like, thanks for highlighting this, and then they just offload and tell me exactly how they're struggling themselves. But it's amazing that a big part of what I do now is I do like well-being days for big companies. I've done it for a few big venues and suppliers, and I do a talk and then I do a drop-in service, and the amount of people that talk about how they feel in this business, and so many of them say, I just don't feel like I can tell anyone, but they all say like they're starting to feel like they can. In your case, obviously you were trying to prove a point by driving yourself forward for the bigger arenas, best of the best, and you achieved that. But with regards to your health, is it about self-awareness, or do you think, and I've asked this question of somebody previously, that does the industry have a duty of care, or is it a combo of all that? I think it's a combo, but I think the business, because it's a business at the end of the day, it's about making money, and I think because I didn't tell anyone I was struggling, I can't blame my previous employers for not noticing that, because honestly I was so good at hiding it, so composed, everything. It was, the industry does have a duty of care, but I think it needs to come right further before anyone gets to that point. And it's something I've seen a real change in. Like I did a well-being day for the O2 Arena for their staff, and the girl that runs that department, she's amazing, and I had a huge talk with her, and she said like she just wants to put tools in place so that nobody gets to a point where they are overwhelmed and having to take sick leave and everything because they can't cope. So I thought that was amazing. Well, I've been following this obviously online,
And it seems it has been embraced. I've been seeing the national Shania Twain's team. You were stoating around Connect Festival, looking at everything that's going on there with, the yoga and mindfulness. You've had testimonials from SW3G in Glasgow, another great venue. Was it PSPAV?
Yes,
I don't know them in Birmingham.
No, they're a video supplier in Birmingham. They do install and supply of huge video walls and AV equipment. So they mainly do conferences and things like that, but they also do some music-related projects.
And how do you feel it's going? I mean, you've stepped out there, you've set up the business, you've been going around everywhere, promoting it, you've been getting great feedback. Are you confident that it's going to continue to build, or have you got... You talked about being a freelance and having those big gaps in your diary. Are you getting to a stage you think, I can see where this is going for 6 months, 12 months? Yeah. Where does it go from here?
I'm not there yet, because I think at the moment everyone I speak to says, this is an amazing idea, we need to do this. I've had so many inquiries from people. I've had loads of inquiries that have gone on to become clients. But I've also had loads of inquiries that I get so excited about that don't go anywhere. Like, I'll get an inquiry through my website, or someone will DM me and I'll get back. We'll talk about having a call, and then nothing. It's very interesting. It's also very interesting because I'm still working, touring, and in the industry of live production. The amount of tours that will spend money on, like, a stylist or a creative, like a choreographer, or something that can be monetized, that goes out to the public eyes or whatever, they'll spend money on that. But I don't think there's been the shift in the industry yet where managers or agents are willing to put a line in a budget for someone like me to be on the tour solely as that.
So is this like an educational thing? Is it a marketing thing? How do you get over that?
Well, at the moment, what I'm doing, because I'm touring at the moment as a production coordinator, I just do my wellness stuff for free on top, because I would rather provide it and practice it out in a real scenario and then spread the word in a way than not do it just because I'm not being paid for it.
So speculate to accumulate. That's what lost it then.
Yeah, and I actually got an inquiry for this artist who wants to come on as a client, and she had a personal recommendation from another musician who I'd done a free thing for. So I'm like, it pays for itself. But there does need to be a shift. I worked on a arena show a few months ago with a big American rap artist, and I was walking around backstage and they had this sign on the door that said health and well-being, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's the first time I've ever seen this on a tour. That's incredible. It's so exciting. And I was like, oh, this is brilliant. Like, I'll need to catch this girl and talk to her about it and see like how her experience is. I didn't see the door open once the whole day, and I was told by one of my colleagues that there was nobody. Like, any time that they walked past, this person was just sat on a laptop. The catering on that show was the most it was toured catering. It was the most unhealthy catering I've ever seen. Everything was fried. There wasn't a vegetable in sight. The whole atmosphere on the tour was so negative. People were at loggerheads with each other, and I just thought, well, this is just ticking a box. You can't pay for someone to be on tour in that role and then not actually act on it. It has to be intentional. But yeah, no, in answer to your actual question, I've never doubted it. Like, I know that the first couple of years are going to be hard, as they are with any business, but I think what I'm doing is so positive that it can only go one. Like, I mean, nobody's going to go back a step with the music industry, so it can only be a success.
Do you think some people have, shame's probably too strong a word, but maybe an embarrassment about reaching out for help?
Yeah, definitely. Especially because of the culture of the industry, and it all is mainly the people that are the most receptive to what I'm doing are younger people who are a bit more open-minded. The last tour I did, there was hardly any alcohol. There was very little partying. Members of the band were going out for runs on show days. They were going to the gym. Like, that's not how I've experienced touring before.
Isn't it?
Completely. But there are still people my age who are ambitious, who want to do that busy, say yes to everything thing. Like, I get it, but it's not for me anymore.
Is it a risk for you still being in that environment? You know, because you had all this business, all these fantastic jobs, all these, I would imagine, life affirming experiences, and you've stepped back, not out.
Yeah.
But you're still getting to do some of the touring, still getting to do the social side, and you're trying to do good at the same time as well as make a business. Is there a danger you get sucked back in, or do you think you've got?
No, I'm over it.
So
like
over
100%. I say no to so much more than I used to. I never let myself, like, I always prioritize I put myself equal as the job on any day. So I'll make sure I take time for myself. I'll go for a walk, I'll get some fresh air. I always look after my nutrition. My sleep is so much better. I've got no notifications on my phone anymore. I try and sleep with my phone as far away from me as possible. Like, I've put all the things I've learned in place, and the last few tours I've done, I've felt as good as when I started them, when I finished. So I'm proof. It doesn't have to break your back.
One of the things I love about your Instagram account is not just the little gobbets of advice that you drop in there, but I'm going to hesitate to say product placement, but you talk about products you use. Hydration powders, food, all those kind of things. Is that a area to explore further for you as well?
Maybe one day. Oh, you mean like if I become a sort of wellness influencer? Yeah, that would be so good. I'd get so much free stuff. Yeah, maybe one day.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, what are your top 5, top 10 go-to drop-ins for clients?
For like feeling good. So the easiest things ever, fresh air and daylight as early as you can in the day. Movement, so just even if all you can manage is a walk, like a few walks around the block. There's some gig days I do, that's all I can manage, but I can still do it. I've got a radio on, I've got my phone. You don't have to be chained to your desk or your dressing room, whatever. I take a green supplement powder every day, because even if catering is really bad, it's easy nutrition. Drinking water. I have recently given up alcohol. It's not like it was a kind of, what do they call it? Dry October. Sober October. I was like, I'll do this. Like, I've never been a big drinker, but I was like, I went to a family wedding, had a bit too much to drink. I thought, I'll see like how I feel having nothing for a while. And I felt so good. I did the whole tour with no alcohol, and I've still not had any. So I'm like, maybe there's something in that. And then the last one is sleep. So sleep was never a priority for me before, but now it is. A game changer.
We could talk about this all day.
I know.
For hours and hours, I'm sure. But I'm cautious of time, so it's going to move now to just some quick questions that we asked at the end. What was the music of your youth, and do you still carry it with you?
So my music of my youth, thanks to my dad, who bought me, so first he bought me 2 tapes. One was Dusty Springfield's Greatest Hits. I now have a dog and she's called Dusty. And he bought me, remember that TV show Heartbeat?
Yes.
He bought me this soundtrack from that TV show, and it's all 60s music. So I still, to this day, listen to mostly music from the 60s and 70s. But then my youth was like, started with boy bands, Boyzone, etc. I was such a huge Boyzone fan, and then it moved on to, discovered rock music, like Guns N' Roses, and then new metal, and then I finally settled into indie in my 20s.
The last song or podcast you listened to before meeting me today?
I actually listened on my way here to Matt Willis's podcast. So he's the bass player from Busted, and he has a it's called On the Mend. It's all about recovery from whatever, and he had a breast cancer campaigner on. Yeah, it's very, very interesting.
Exclusive album launch or festival?
Or what I'd rather go to, festival. Any day, if I can pick the lineup.
Favourite food or rider?
That's too hard. I know what my rider would be, and it would be so boring. Sparkling water, blueberries, dark chocolate, nuts. And it used to be tequila, but I'd have to swap it. Kombucha, I love kombucha.
I think I know the answer to this one, but if you could collaborate with anyone, live or dead, on a project, who would it be and why?
So I have this unfulfilled dream to be a backing singer. So I would collaborate with Mick Jagger, and I'd be his backing singer.
If you had to pick one song to be that backing singer on?
Give Me Shelter.
Restaurant, cinema, or lazy Sunday brunch?
Ooh, brunch.
Digital addict, or can you switch off?
Both, and I hate that. I love switching off, but I think everyone in the whole world, I'm addicted to my phone. They're designed to addict us, aren't they?
Do you know what your screen time is?
It's actually not too bad. It's 3 hours something, which I think is quite good,
pretty good,
seeing as I have to use it for work so much. Yeah, and I'm always using maps.
And your notifications are off. So
yeah, so it's quite good. Yeah.
What does life look like for you after you stop?
Ooh.
In terms of all this.
After I stop working, I want to live on the outskirts of Lisbon, near the sea, and I want to have a couple of dogs and just teach yoga just if I need to, and eat lots of nice seafood and sit in the sun.
One artist everyone should be listening to right now?
Ooh, that's so hard. Do you know what? I recently this isn't a new artist, but I rediscovered Lucinda Williams. Do you know who that is? She's an Americana singer. She's in her 60s now, I think. But I bought. My dad doesn't know how to access podcasts, so it's fine. But I bought him her autobiography for Christmas. Yes, I've already bought all my Christmas presents. He always used to play me one of her albums in the car, so I've been re-listening to her entire back catalogue on repeat every single day.
And what's the best piece of advice you've been given or would share with others?
Best piece of advice? No job is more important than your own health.
From where you started to where you are now, what was the good stuff in between?
Oh, all of it. It would take me hours to tell you all the incredible experiences I've had. Like, the best, honestly the best job in the world. I know that I've spoken about how hard it's been and that it made me a little unwell at times, but there's no industry better, honestly.
How do you feel looking back on it?
Like, it's one big adventure. Like, all the travel, all the people I've met. Yeah, it's so good.
And if you have one photograph in your mind from all that time that you could hang on the wall,
yeah,
what do you think it would be?
Well, I don't have a photo of it, sadly, but Debbie Harry gave me a hug.
Well,
that would be it.
Okay, Macdonald, hugs all around.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
And best of luck with your new adventure.
Thank you.
I know now how I went so wrong. I disconnected from the power, forgot to switch myself back on.
One of the best things about doing this podcast is not just getting to chat with so many brilliantly talented folk about the stories, but stumbling over really special people that you can just click with. Katie is undoubtedly one of those. Her honesty and resilience that now sees her helping others stand strong, we hope can serve as an inspiration to anyone, whatever industry they're in, to pause, to reflect, and to consider our own life and well-being choices. The Good Stuff in Between is an independent production, written, edited and produced by me, Sean Milne, from Skoog Media Associates. Today's guest was Katie Macdonald, the multi-skilled music industry leader and founder of Well on Tour. Huge thanks to her for making the time to share her remarkable and inspiring story. And if you want to learn more or engage with Katie directly about beating burnout, then start your day one by visiting wellontour.com. Our show title music is Nothing's Going to Bring Me Down by Lewis-based singer-songwriter Willie Campbell, and you can discover more of his brilliant songs at williecampbell.co.uk and look out for a new album coming soon in 2024. You can follow us on LinkedIn and at Instagram at Good Stuff In Between. If you want to get involved, drop us a line, and watch out for a new episode coming soon, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.